There is a certain way people look at you when you enter a room alone. At first, you think you are imagining it, a flicker of curiosity, a microsecond of suspicion. When you sit at a restaurant table set for one, the server's question, "Is anyone joining you?" implies that solitude is temporary, a waiting stage before proper company. You laugh it off. You have reasons. Work keeps you busy. Your past relationships didn't last. You enjoy your independence. Yet somewhere deep within, you sense that society has written a story about men like you, and the story isn't kind. The narrative whispers that a man without partner or family is incomplete, unstable, maybe even dangerous. You begin to feel that your singlehood is not just a personal circumstance, but a social transgression. There's an unresolved tension here, a mystery behind the collective discomfort. You are not sure whether to defend yourself, apologize, or simply accept that being an outlier draws attention. You sense you embody a pattern that others project their fears onto, but you haven't quite articulated what that pattern is or why it disturbs them. From a young age, you absorbed subtle scripts about masculinity. The archetypal man was a provider, protector, father, partner. His value lay in his ability to serve a unit, family, community, team. Independence was praised, but only as a step toward forming that unit. No one told you explicitly that deviating from this trajectory would make you suspect. Yet the expectations hung in the air like incense. When you were a boy, relatives asked when you would bring home a girlfriend. In university, friends congratulated those who got engaged, as if they had leveled up. Single men were described with qualifiers, still single, as if their status was temporary, a problem to be solved. Media portrayed bachelors as playboys or loners with dark secrets. The cultural imagination left little room for a man who simply chose to be alone or found himself there without bitterness. Society's fear of single men is not solely about moral panic. It is rooted in historical anxieties. In many cultures, unattached men were seen as threats to social order because they were not tethered by domestic responsibilities. Without a family, a man might roam, rebel, fight. In the urban legends of old villages, the stranger who arrived without kin was often the villain. Even in modern cities, there's an unease about a man who doesn't answer to anyone, who can move without explanation. People wonder where his energy will be directed. They fill the vacuum of his unknown private life with stories. Is he lonely and desperate? Is he predatory? Is he broken? They rarely imagine that he might be whole. They rarely consider that singlehood might be a path rather than a failure. You sense these projections when you are among couples. Conversations turn to renovations, school systems, shared finances, and you find yourself either excluded or turned into an exotic artifact. They ask questions about your dating life, your plans. Their inquiries are often genuine, but sometimes there is a quivering curiosity beneath them, as if they need to confirm that you are trying to join their ranks. If you say you enjoy your solitude, there may be polite smiles or patronizing nods. If you express frustration at dating, you might be offered advice. If you remain silent, your silence becomes a blank screen onto which fears can be projected. In social narratives, a single woman can be called independent, a spinster, or empowered, but there is a language for her. For single men, there are fewer words. Bachelor suggests a carefree player. Loner suggests antisocial. Incel conjures aggression. None of these capture the mundane reality of simply living by yourself. Of course, there are men whose singlehood becomes a crucible for bitterness. Some respond to societal suspicion with contempt, forming identities around grievance, They join echo chambers that confirm their belief that the world owes them a partner. They lash out at the very society that mistrusts them. In doing so, they reinforce the fear. But there is a quiet majority who simply live, perhaps with longing, perhaps with contentment, perhaps with both. They get up, go to work, pay bills, visit friends, care for parents, maintain hobbies. Their lives are not cautionary tales or secrets. They are ordinary. The fear society feels is less about the men themselves and more about what they represent, the fragility of cultural structures. Couples provide a predictable pattern. Families fit into an economic model. The paired man is legible. His time is divided between work and family. His priorities are deducible. A single man is unpredictable. He might spend his evenings reading philosophy, building a business, volunteering, wandering, dating casually, abstaining completely. He is not easily categorized. Systems dislike what they cannot categorize. If a man chooses not to follow the expected path, he is exercising autonomy that cannot be easily leveraged. The fear is that he might encourage others to question the default. The fear is that he might reveal that fulfillment and duty can take multiple forms. There is also the fear of unmet needs, the projection of loneliness. When people see you alone, they might feel their own unexamined loneliness. They might imagine what their life would be without their partner and shudder. They project that shudder onto you. They assume you must be suffering in ways they fear they would. They cannot conceive that solitude might hold tenderness, that a quiet apartment can be a sanctuary rather than a cell. In this way, their fear is a mirror. It reflects their own anxieties about love, commitment, and identity. You notice, too, that single men become scapegoats in debates about social issues. Rising housing costs. Single men living alone take up too much space. Declining birth rates. Single men won't settle down. Urban safety concerns. Single men are potential offenders. The statistics used to support these claims rarely distinguish between individuals. They lump humans into categories. They flatten complexity. You become an avatar onto which policy frustrations are pinned. Your personal choices become political statements without your consent. Amid this landscape, you carve a life. Some days, you relish the freedom to arrange your living space exactly as you wish. You cook when you feel like it. You work late without apology. You travel spontaneously. Your friendships are deep, not placeholders while you wait for romance. You are intimately aware of your own rhythms. You have confronted your loneliness and discovered that it is sometimes a gateway to self-knowledge rather than a void. Other days, the solitude weighs heavy. The absence of a partner to share mundane details with can feel like a muted ache. You watch couples navigate the world in pairs and wonder what companionship would feel like if it were an equal exchange rather than an expectation. You may oscillate between desire and contentment, between longing and relief. There is a danger in internalizing society's fear. You might begin to suspect yourself, to see your singleness as a flaw. You might hide parts of your life to avoid judgment or overcompensate by becoming overly social, performing stability. You might date people you don't love just to fit. Yet there is also an opportunity here. When you step outside societal expectations, you gain perspective. You can question the narratives about worth. You can decide what masculinity means for you without the crutch of traditional roles. You can learn to source your identity from within rather than from relational status. In practical terms, you may choose to build community intentionally. Family does not have to be defined by blood or marriage. You can cultivate chosen family, friends who know your history, who show up, who share meals and holidays. You can volunteer, mentor, be mentored. In doing so, you challenge the stereotype that single men are disconnected. You demonstrate that caring and commitment are not exclusive to romantic partnership. You can also engage with your own biases. Notice when you assume things about other single men. Are you perpetuating the same fears you face? What would it look like to hold space for yourself and others without defaulting to suspicion? Society's fear may never disappear entirely. Humans are wired to categorize and often wary of the unfamiliar. But cultural narratives change when individuals live differently and tell their stories. When you speak honestly about your joys and struggles, you create space for nuance. When you refuse to apologize for your circumstances, you chip away at the stigma. You are not responsible for educating everyone, but your existence can be a quiet challenge to monolithic expectations. Over time, the presence of content, ethical, emotionally intelligent single men disrupts the caricature. The deepest truth might be that society fears what it cannot control. A man alone answers to himself. He reflects back the myriad possibilities of adulthood. For some, that is exhilarating. For others, it is terrifying. You cannot ease everyone's discomfort. You can only live your life with integrity. That might mean eventually meeting someone and sharing a life. It might mean remaining single and redefining legacy. It might mean something in between. The point is not to justify your choices, but to know them. When you move from knowing, the gaze of others becomes background noise. In the quiet of your own home, when the day has ended and the questions subside, you are left with yourself. This is true of everyone, partnered or not. Each person must face their own thoughts, regrets, hopes. In that sense, you are not an anomaly. You are a human navigating existence. The fear society projects onto you speaks more about its own insecurities than about your character. Recognizing this doesn't erase the awkward comments or the stereotypes, but it does free you from the need to internalize them. Your life is not an absence waiting to be filled. It is a path, and like all paths, it will be both rugged and beautiful.